Working with influencers is a great way to connect with potential buyers. Customers tend to trust influencers more that they have been following for weeks, months, or even years with any product recommendations. Ultimately, your clients are more likely to trust an influencer rather than an advertisement that they see on TV. And the reason is because they're following that influencer, they're building trust with a particular person, so they really rely and value the recommendation that they're giving. Nowadays, customers are smarter, so they can almost like smell an advertisement. They know when you try to sponsor a post, they can sense that that's an advertisement, whether they see it on TV, a billboard, or a magazine ad. But when you activate influencers and they position your product in a very strategic but yet in a very open way, you can utilize that piece in your marketing, but yet it seems like it's an organic piece that they just see from the favorite influencer. That's the reason why customers tend to trust recommendations from influencers a little bit more than just a plain advertisement they see on TV. But just a quick tip on the side, any marketing campaign you activate, whether it's an influencer campaign, I always recommend enhancing that with some paid ads, whether it's like on Facebook or you do a Google ad or you do even a direct mail ad if you're still into that. But definitely once you activate influencers, strengthen your campaign if of course you have the budget with some paid media ads, so your customers start seeing your product everywhere. They see it in the hands of their favorite influencers. Now they might see it on the radio or they hear it on Spotify. Next thing you know, they see it on Hulu while they're streaming their favorite show. So think about a whole 360 approach when you launch a marketing campaign for your business. So if you connect with the right influencers, you can increase brand awareness and drive more sales. And again, as I mentioned, utilizing influencers can really help your brand to build trust. If a customer repeatedly sees your product everywhere, sees it in the hand of the influencer, it will increase brand recognition and build trust because your brand is so present. And first of all, before you activate any influencers, you have to set a campaign goal. It is crucial and super important to have a well-defined project scope and goal. Knowing why you want to work with an influencer will help you to determine what kind of influencers you need to activate in order to achieve that goal. So you need to think about, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve an increase in brand awareness? Do you want to generate more user-generated content? Do you want to promote a specific product, or do you simply want to drive more sales? And these are all important questions to consider when defining your objective. For example, if you want to build brand awareness and get people talking about your brand, you can send your product simply to an influencer or influencers without any strings attached. You can send it to them, tell them, hey, try out my product, there's no compensation, I just want you to try my product. And you can simply ask them, if you like it, why don't you share it with your followers online? Most of the time, if an influencer likes your product, they're going to share it on their Instagram. Not necessarily on the feed, but they will definitely mention it on their Instagram story. If your objective is to drive sales, then you need to understand the following of the influencers or influencer you consider working with. And keep in mind, the size of an influencer doesn't really matter. In fact, smaller influencers often tend to have a tighter community. So you should look for influencers whose audience aligns with your target audience and who have a really engaged following. If you find an influencer with a really engaged following, you can ensure that the influencer's followers will be more likely to trust the influencer's recommendation, and they will take action, resulting in more sales for your business. And of course, while sending products to influencers can be a great way to generate more user-generated content, it's definitely important to do it strategically. It's not enough to simply send product to an influencer with a large following. Instead, it's important to identify influencers whose audience aligns with your target audience and values. Of course, this requires research, so you need to go out there, you need to look at the influencers, you need to look at their niche, their content style, how often are they posting, are they active on all of their social media channels, are they utilizing Instagram stories, reels, how often do they post content. All those are important factors you have to look at before you consider the influencer. Once you identified the goal and the objective you want from your influencer campaign, now it's time to really craft those clear guidelines. You should always provide clear guidelines and expectations for any influencer you onboard for content creation. This includes information on how the product should be used, any features the product have or any highlights, any benefits, and of course any hashtags or brand elements that should be included. If you provide a clear direction of what you expect and what the message should be about your product, and if you give information about your product, you can ensure that the content generated by the influencer aligns with your brand message and your brand values. And I always recommend also creating a branded hashtag. But now you might ask yourself, what is a branded hashtag? A branded hashtag is a unique hashtag created for your brand or for a specific campaign, and it's used to track and organize all of the social media content related to either your brand or the campaign. So when you work with influencers, definitely tell them, encourage them to use your branded hashtag. And another fun fact about a branded hashtag, let's say you have a challenge and you use that branded hashtag, other creators, so non-influencers, but everyone who has a social media account, can also jump on the train, create their own content, and then tag your brand using the branded hashtag. And if you do that, if you utilize a branded hashtag, really promote it with influencers, this helps to increase the reach of your content. This really helps to reach a broader audience, really helps to increase your campaign's visibility, and users can easily find and engage with that content related to your brand. If you decide to create a branded hashtag for your brand or for your influencer campaign, it's important that it's unique, memorable, and easy to spell. And of course, the hashtag should also be relevant to your brand or to the campaign, and definitely make sure it has not been used by another brand for another campaign. The last thing you want to do is get someone else's branded hashtag and then start creating content for that. Now that you defined the goals, you understand the expectations, you created a branded hashtag, now it's time to identify the influencer you want to work with. And identifying the right influencer is a crucial part of any influencer campaign. It's important to determine which type of influencer would best fit the campaign and, of course, your goal. And I break down influencers into 4 categories based on the numbers of followers they have. And the categories are nano-influencer, micro-influencer, macro-influencer, and mega-influencer. And Tetris always likes to be part of the show as well. Nano-influencers typically have a following of less than 10,000 people, while micro-influencers have a following anywhere between 10,000 to 150,000. Macro-influencers have a following of between 150,000 to 1 million. And then our mega-influencers or celebrities, they have a following of 1 million and plus. When selecting influencers, it's super important to keep in mind the demographic of their audience, engagement rate, and their niche. So what type of content are they producing? You want to choose influencers whose following matches your target audience and whose values align with your brand values. And of course, if you select an influencer that has a high engagement rate, chances are that you get a great conversion rate if you would activate that follower. Influencers with a highly engaged following, of course, they're more likely to generate better results for your business. And now you might think, well, duh, it makes super sense to get a mega influencer with 1 million plus following, because more eyeballs, more people equal more sales, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case, because if you activate a mega influencer, yes, you might be able to reach a broader audience, but they also come with a much higher price tag. And again, these big influencers might have the following all over the place, so it might not really be your target audience. So it's nice that that person created content for you, but it doesn't really generate sales. But keep in mind that choosing the right influencer isn't just about the size of the following. You should always consider the type of content they produce and their audience's interests. For example, if you are promoting a vegan food product, working with influencers who also create health-conscious food recipes or also talk about veganism, that would make sense, because most likely their following is interested in your product. But if you're a vegan food company and you want to work with an influencer who also cooks but talks about constantly 10 ways how you can utilize butter in your recipes, maybe that's not the right thing. Or someone who says, 10 different ways so you can fry a carrot. Maybe that's not the right person for your product. So definitely make sure you do your research. Now you ask yourself, where do you find them? Where do you find influencers? Well, you can find them on social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and you name it, all other popular places. Because influencers definitely hang out on all those social media platforms. So you can search for hashtags or keywords or anything relevant to your industry or product to find influencers who are already creating content around those topics. So you can use, for example, Los Angeles blogger, Los Angeles content creator if you're in LA, or any other state. So try out those hashtags to find someone online. But you can also turn to influencer marketing platforms. There are several influencer marketing platforms such as Social Native or Octoly that connects brands with influencers. And how it works. As a brand, you would sign up for, let's say, you would sign up on Social Native, you would sign up on Octoly, and you will tell them, hey, this is my campaign. I am looking for that specific demographic. I want video content, and these are all the hashtags and brand mentions that have to be included. Now the influencers already on Social Native would see your campaign, they have the chance to apply for this campaign. Same with Octoly, but Octoly works on a product only basis, or if let's say you have an event where you would like influencers to attend, then you can post those campaigns there. And once influencers apply, you can select them, you can say, yes, this is the right fit, no, this is not a great fit, and you can X them out. It's a great way to find influencers and really to rely on a platform that has, I want to say, the infrastructure down. So all you have to do is post the campaign and then the influencers would come to you instead of you doing all the research. The downside is that, of course, platforms such as Social Native or Octoly or these social media influencer platforms in general, they do come with a price tag. So you cannot just post your campaign for free. So keep that in mind if you decide to go that route. What I appreciate about those social media influencer marketing networks, that sometimes you send an influencer a product and they're super excited about it and they get it, and then you never hear from them again. Crickets. Follow up with them, they don't reply, and you basically wasted your product, you basically paid for your product for them, and they never post. So if you go through a influencer marketing platform, they make sure that the influencer posts, and if they don't post, then they get penalized, so they either lose access to their accounts or any other, I want to say, restriction is being put in place. So that's definitely an advantage of choosing one of those platforms. Another way to find influencers is by relying on referrals. Referrals are great for business, so why not using them for influencer marketing? And referrals can really be a powerful way to find influencers. So you can either ask your customers, and you can ask other influencers who they would recommend for you to work with. Another way to find them is going to industry events. Attending industry events, conferences, meetups, all of these places can provide an opportunity to meet influencers on a personal level and then establish a relationship. Now that you set a goal, clear guidelines, you know where to find them, the next step would be, how do you approach them? First of all, it doesn't matter where you approach them, whether it's via email, direct messages, always craft a clear and concise personal message. And I want to put a huge emphasis on personal message. So don't just reach out to an influencer saying, hi, username, or hi, I just saw you on Instagram and thought I might reach out. This is so impersonal, and influencers do get a lot of emails. If I see something like this, I immediately hit the trash can, because you didn't even take the time to either look at my name, which is pretty much on every social media channel, and you have nothing to say about me. It's a very generic email you probably sent to 30, 40 influencers, and it doesn't really seem like I want to work with your brand. So when you reach out to someone, take the time, look at the content, look at the post, and in your email, highlight the latest post. Tell them, I really liked the post where, for example, you went to this museum, or I really liked the post where you went on vacation and you did XYZ. Also address them by the name. Little things like this go a very long way for an influencer to acknowledge your email and wanting to work with you. But also when you reach out to an influencer, also include any expectations or any campaign goals, and also include whether the influencer would be compensated or not. And compensation can be both ways. You can compensate someone by purely sending them product, or you can compensate them by sending them product plus monetary compensation. And that's really up to you how you want to do it and what's in your budget. And once the influencer has expressed interest in the potential collaboration, then you can start by providing a detailed campaign brief. And your campaign brief should include information about the campaign goal. It should talk about the timeline, talk about any content requirements, and then should talk about compensation. And if so, if you decide to give monetary compensation, what would be the dollar amount? When you work with influencers, it's super important to establish clear expectations for the influencer's content creation, including any branding guidelines, hashtags, or any other requirements you might have. If you provide all those guidelines and branded hashtags and whatnot, you really ensure that the content the influencer generates aligns with your brand message and values. I understand that the influencer posts on their social media networks, but at the end of the day, you hire them to create content on your behalf, and you want to make sure that your branding stays consistent across various channels, even if someone else creates the content and posts the content on their account. So always provide clear guidelines. You can also create like an influencer brand Bible so they know what colors you use, they can know about your tone and learn more about your brand. And if you have any questions about influencer marketing, or you might think about activating influencers for your campaign, or you need help finding them, or you need someone who can take care of the campaign, definitely reach out to me. You can find me on social media under The Social Wisdom, or you can reach out to me directly at nina@thesocialwisdom.com, and then we can start the conversation. I would be very glad to help you in your next influencer campaign, or even if you're looking for an influencer, definitely hit me up. And this also led us yet again to another episode of the Content Marketing Cheat Sheet podcast. I'm so glad you tuned in today, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Until then, goodbye, or how we say in Germany, auf Wiedersehen.